If you're listening to this podcast, it means you're hungry. Hungry for change, hungry for growth, and ready to have a major breakthrough in your business. As a partner or founder in more than a dozen businesses that do more than $5 billion in revenue each year, Tony Robbins has learned from the best in the world, the Steve Wynns, Mark Benioffs, and Peter Gubers, what it takes to be successful. Whether you've been in business for decades or are just getting started, it's important to get help from someone who's been there, someone who's going to coach you through it. That's why Tony is offering a free one-on-one business strategy session from one of his top business strategists, a $600 value, completely free, no strings attached. If you're listening right now, go to TonyRobbins.com/CEO and sign up for a free session with a Tony Robbins trained business strategist who's helped business owners just like you to overcome their obstacles and set them on the path to success. In a world where 96% of businesses fail after 10 years, you must know how to anticipate and how to take advantage. Take advantage of this offer today. And now, back to the podcast.
Welcome to the Tony Robbins Podcast. I'm your host, Annie Org. In this special episode, you'll hear an insightful interview between Tony and his past friend and business partner, Chet Holmes. During his life, Chet was known as one of the best sales and marketing experts in the world, working with over 75 Fortune 500 companies, including American Express, Merrill Lynch, Estee Lauder, and Xerox. In short, Chet was the master of sales systems, and his teaching is still the foundation of sales education across the globe. In this interview, Tony talks with Chet and breaks down the strategies that propelled his success. They address real-life examples of companies that Chet advised, giving you the tools to understand the market you're in and the exact hiring process you need to build a world-class sales team, transform your business, and experience exponential growth.
Hi, it's Tony Robbins. Welcome to the podcast. This session is going to be a very special one. I have an opportunity to introduce you to a dear friend of mine and a partner, and a gentleman who's helped businesses from all over the world. More than 75 of the Fortune 500 have sought him out. He wrote the book, The Ultimate Sales Machine. His name is Chet Holmes. He's a gentleman who took 9 of Charlie Munger's divisions and literally doubled their sales in the first year, something Charlie had never seen. And Charlie's a multi-billionaire and one of the most successful businessmen in the world. So Chet has got quite a track record of making businesses go to a whole nother level. And what I love about Chet is he makes it so simple. We're going to show you some principles in this interview that once you understand them, you can apply them whether you're a web marketer or you own a car dealership or you've got a candy shop, someplace in Korea. It doesn't matter where you are. And we have people from all over the world who we reached out and said, look, we're going to do a different session this time. We're going to do a session where we're going to teach you some principles. I'm going to do my interview with our guest. But we want to really troubleshoot your business a little bit. So tell us what your challenges are, and let's let him see if he can give you some answers to that. So it's amazing. We got responses literally from all over the world through the web, and we're going to address those in this session. So it'll be a kind of a little workshop at the end of what's the problem, what's the solution? How can we use some of the principles that we talked about here? So I want to begin by just welcoming my dear friend Chet. Good to see you, buddy.
Thank you.
I really appreciate you coming down and visiting. I'm excited to introduce people to you here. I mean, you don't need an introduction for most people in business, but I'm curious. You started with very humble roots, and now you're the guy that's called upon to do these turnarounds for giant corporations. Some of our clients, one of our recent clients, we turned around as $1.5 billion company, and yet we're also able to turn around, dental offices. We really have the chance now to make a difference in every type of business, every type of size, because the principles you teach are so solid and so simple, and they work, and they give a competitive advantage. So how did you come up with this concept of how to create a competitive advantage that was different than everybody else, of selling the same way, marketing the same way? Where did the drive for that come from? And tell us just a little bit about, your background, how this evolved.
Well, we were poor, when we were growing up, we were poor. My father was first he was a Marine combat instructor, and then he came out of that and became a police officer, and 5 children. And my mother didn't work, so we were poor, and I didn't like being poor, so I was definitely driven to try and climb above that. And then later in life, I got into sales, and I didn't like being treated like a salesperson. So I found that if I was able to bring value beyond just the product that I was selling, I could get more appointments, I could get appointments with higher level executives, and then when I went to work for Charlie, we institutionalized it. I turned it into a system. And because he didn't give me 9 companies at once, he gave me 1, and then I doubled the sales in it, and then they gave me 2 more, and then I doubled the sales of those, and they gave me 3 more. And so that's how I ended up running 9 different divisions. And then the first one, I doubled 3 years in a row, using the techniques that we're going to talk to today. So the primary tool that I use to help people try and attract the widest possible audience is what we call education-based marketing. And you and I have a client right now. They're the largest home builder in the world, or certainly in Mexico, they're the largest. They might be the 3rd largest in the world, and maybe probably be the largest in the world before they're done. But these guys build 700 homes a week. And they're New York Times Stock Exchange, trade on the New York Stock Exchange. And basically, they're out there all the time going, buy a home X home, buy a home X home, buy a home X home in Mexico, right? And so we went in there and, again, trying to always understand the market, do research on it. Most people never do this. They don't really understand their markets. Like, I talked to a group the other day, and they were selling to lawyers, and I said, how many lawyers are there in the country? Nobody knew. They know their product, they know their service, they don't know anything about the industries or the markets that they serve. Yes. So we did this research, and we went out there, and we found out the biggest problem in Mexico is that people will live 3 generations in one household. I mean, literally, you will have 15 people living in a 700 square foot house. Wow. There's a living room, a bedroom, and a bathroom. I mean, in a kitchen. That's it. Very, very tiny houses, and they're shacks. And yet the Mexican government now is funding all the homes you want to possibly buy. So you can go out of that shack into a brand new home, and they're taking the money out of your paycheck anyway. Right. So just like they do Social Security in the United States, in Mexico, that Social Security can be applied as a down payment on a house, and then the percentage that they take, they'll just take it out of your pay, and they'll pay the mortgage for you.
Wow.
So, it's like, why wouldn't you get a house? And just motivating people to get out of that whole thing. So we did some research. We found out that in a crowded household, the chance of infancy death is 400% greater than in a non-crowded household. If a little girl grows up in a crowded household, because she's the lowest on the pecking order, she sort of grows up with learned helplessness. Boys who grow up in a crowded household are twice as likely to be a failure in life, twice as likely to be an alcoholic. Females who grow up in crowded households are twice as likely to get pregnant younger. So this is data. So we took some of this data, and where their ads used to say, buy Home X Home, we're Home X, we build homes, buy a Home X Home. And their agency at the time just said to us basically, look, the advertising is not really, going to pull response. I mean, people are going to buy a house whether they want to or not. You can't really motivate people to buy a house. We're just, fundamentally just branding. And I don't buy that for a second, by the way. I do not believe that if you're advertising, you should be pulling response. And it's a waste of money otherwise. Like, while I'm branding, let me pull some response. So we started running the ads, and we started saying, did you know the chance of infancy death in a crowded household is 400% greater? Did you know that blah, 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 blah? And then, we set up the whole stage, and the first week that the ads ran, the month prior, they pulled 7 phone calls.
This is $1.5 billion company, by the way, so people know.
Yeah, and the first week they ran the ad, they pulled what we thought at first was 1,300 inbound phone calls. Later on, we found out it was 2,300 because 800 went into nothing because we filled up their voicemail. Nobody could answer any more calls, so they were able to track 800 lost calls. And that alone, for a company doing 700 homes a week, in some weeks has boosted their sales 300 additional homes.
Wow. It's extraordinary. And this is the value of education marketing. It's knowing what your audience really needs to know in order to get them to understand what they need to do, fulfilling the need after you've established what the real problem is. And I've watched you do this again and again in just any kind of industry you can imagine. Let's say I have a little restaurant. This one of the type of people that wrote into us. And I'm in my restaurant, and right now the economy's tightened. People are spending more time at home. They're eating less at the restaurants. I've got great food. I got a great restaurant. I got great service. But I can't keep the restaurant full. I'm advertising. I'm spending more dollars on advertising than before. People are just not coming in. And there are people right now like that are closing up. take that case. What would you do with this? I know one of your strategies that you teach.
Okay, so we teach a concept. It's called the best buyer strategy. And so you probably eat out, I don't know, 5 nights a week. Sometimes it's 7 nights a week for me because I'm traveling all the time.
Sure.
So actually that's a good story because I can give you a case in point. There's this little gourmet restaurant in a motel in our neighborhood. And so I never even noticed it. It's like Ricky's Bar and Restaurant, it says, in a red neon thing. And it's in a motel. So it's not like I'm stopping in there, But some neighbor of ours takes us there one night, and that's like, oh my God, the food is fantastic. It's really great. So, but the place is, so we start going there regularly, and I have food allergies, and so I will tend to focus in my neighborhood in like 3 or 4 restaurants, and then I'll train them so that if I take you out for dinner, I'm going to take you to a place where I don't have to explain that I'm allergic to this and that, and the waiter already knows. And then I tip them heavily, So anyway, I start going there a lot, and the wait staff is great. The food is fantastic. I know the menu. I don't even have to look at the thing. And one Tuesday night we're in there, we're the only people in there. The restaurant is empty. Ghost town. And he's got waiters and a bartender and, a hostess and himself and kitchen chefs and cooks in the back and bus boys. I mean, this is a whole place. 2 people in the restaurant. So he's losing money that night. Right. So I nudge him over, and he comes over to me, and I go, how'd you like to sell at this restaurant? And just like literally every table in the place full. And he goes, like, that's impossible. Like, he doesn't say that, but you see it on his face. Right. And I go, I only have one condition. He says, what's that? I said, I'll show you how to sell at this restaurant, but my condition is I always get a table. Because I don't want to sell this, it's now become one of my favorite restaurants, So
at this point, he's thinking you're crazy, like he's looking at an empty restaurant saying, no problem, right?
Yeah, sure, okay, fine. So this is what we call best buyer strategy. Who's your best buyer? And for those people, you want to do something special because they're a best buyer. So I had to talk him into this, I said, look, I've been coming here. Last week we came here 7 days in a row, just as it worked out. And 3 or 4 of those days, I brought other people. And my bill was $200 and $500 and $700. I said, what do you think I've spent in this restaurant in the last 6 months since I've been coming in here? She goes, I don't know. I said, maybe $10,000. I said, how many of your diners that are coming in here spent $10,000? He goes, not a lot. And I go, well, wouldn't you like to have just those kind of buyers in here? He goes, yeah, well, how do I get them? And I said, well, we use a thing called the best neighborhood strategy. And people live in better, in the big houses in the best neighborhoods. They're probably out spending more money because money's a lesser issue than convenience. That's what it is for me. I eat out because it's convenient. You know what I mean? I don't have the time to cook and prepare and this and that. So I said, would you buy a dinner for people just to prove to them how good your restaurant is? He goes, and especially if they're going to be like me, where they're going to eat out a lot and spend a lot of money and, buy the most expensive things on the menu, whatever the heck they want, bring friends in, entertain. He goes, heck yes, I'd buy them a dinner in a second. So a little direct mail tip, by the way, the number one open thing in direct mail, let's say you come home, you got all your bills, and there's a greeting card. Right. What are you going to open first? Right. You're going to go right to the greeting card. Right. So I said, send a greeting card. So we had this really nice invitation put together, and it said, you're invited on the front of the thing. And it looked like a wedding invitation. It was beautiful, white, it's nice, expensive. And you open it up, and it says, because of who you are, and because we think you're the kind of discerning client that we'd like to attract, we are willing to buy you dinner in our restaurant just to prove how fantastic it is. We have a 5-star gourmet restaurant. We're 5 minutes from your house, which we know because we can target the neighborhood we want, and we would like to buy you dinner. Now, when you come in, and use this exact invitation because you're special and we want to treat you special. So now the guy comes in with a thing, and they know he lives in a mansion down the street, so they're going to treat him extra special. So he does the mailer, and the first place he does it, I said, do my neighborhood, because 54 houses around a golf course. I said, do it to my neighborhood, So I get it at home, and I'm like, uh-huh. So I stop in, and I go, so how did it work? He goes, it didn't really work. And I go, really? And I go, nobody responded? He said, well, no, 6 people have come in so far. And I go, when was the last time you heard a direct mail piece pulling a 12% response rate? Send more invitations, So anyway, then I guess it's about 4 or 5 months later. It's a Tuesday night, and he keeps sending these, and he starts to get the hang of it, and he's working the people over, and he's doing strategic selling where, first time at the restaurant, oh, let me tell you about this, a gourmet, 5-star, organic food, this and that, blah, blah, blah. And so when he's all finished, I come back about 6 months later one day, and I come in, it's a Tuesday night, totally sold out. No tables. So I go like this at the guy. I go,
Where's my table?
where's my table?
He's ready to move one to get you in there at this
Well, they
stage.
took one out of the kitchen, and they put a nice white tablecloth on it, put it over in the corner, and my wife and I sat down and had dinner.
What's so beautiful about this strategy is it doesn't cost a lot of money. It's really more people getting clear, who is my ideal customer in this market or any market, targeting those people and going and communicating ongoingly. Now, if you already have a customer, the most expensive thing we all have in business, for most businesses, is the cost to get your customer, to get a client. And most people spend all that money and then they start over and they try to get another client, try to get another client. We all know someone who's not just a customer but an ongoing client, you don't have to spend all the marketing dollars anymore. If you've met their needs, servicing them again is really valuable. But you've used education marketing there to expand it. And you're being really humble. I want you to talk about the specific results. You're telling people the general theory, but I'll give you an example. Tell them the story, share with us if you would, what you did in the cleaning business, that gentleman from New York, because it's such a great example. Business has been around forever, institutionalized. I mean, hundreds of millions of dollars in business, whatever the size the business was, been around for X number of years. Share with that story, because the beauty of that was you took customers they already had, and through education marketing, doubled the sales.
That is a very good example, actually. Well, of course, this fellow sees me. He's one of the largest if not the single largest carpet cleaning company in the country. But even so, that's not a big business, because most carpet cleaning companies are two guys in a truck.
Right.
So this guy might have 30 trucks and he serves 3 states. I mean, so for carpet cleaning, he's a monster. He's huge. And he comes to me to ask me to help him get more clients. And like you just pointed out, I said, well, how often do your current clients buy? And he says, well, they buy about once every 3 years. And he had 30,000 clients. So if you do the math, that's 10,000 sales a year. So I said, well, what have you done to try and get them to buy more often? He says, oh, we give them, coupons and discounts, typical tactical stuff, right? Yeah. So we go out again, do the research, right? Use the group that you and I use, and we go out and we do some research, and we find out, lo and behold, a PhD who's the head of the indoor air quality studies for the Environmental Protection Agency, had actually studied the impact of the quality of the health of your environment based upon the cleanliness of your carpet. So we get this study, and it turns out that when the government did some microscopic studies of what was in the carpets, they went, this is government buildings where the carpets are vacuumed every single day, and they found aspergillus and bacteria and dust mites and their feces and the bacteria that feeds on them. It was nasty, nasty stuff. So they end up taking the carpets out of the buildings, and they found people got sicker 4 times more often. So
why, if the carpets were so polluted, why did taking them out make it worse?
Because now that stuff's getting in your lungs.
Oh, so the carpet's like a filter.
It's like a giant health filter.
Wow.
But just like any health filter, it needs to be sanitized. And so even if you're vacuuming it every day, that's not killing germs and bacteria. And if you look at the professional cleaners, they come in with that boiling hot steam and the proper, chemicals, and they just disinfect the whole house. So we came up with this idea. It was called the Gold Service. And at first it was called Gold Member Service. And then Austin Powers came out with that movie. And I thought, okay, let's get away from Gold Member. And we just went to Gold Service. And so then you'd call in and you'd want to get your carpets cleaned. You go, yes, ma'am, no problem. Give me your Gold Service number. You say, my Gold Service number. You say, oh, aren't you a Gold Service member? And she'd go, well, no. Oh, okay, well, it turns out, and they would do that little education about the government and, how they studied and, and how your carpet should be cleaned about every 6 months. And so if you're a Gold Service member.
If you clean every 6 months, all these problems go away.
Yeah, plus we'll give you a discount. Because, again, if he can get his people buying twice as much, Right. So, again, that leads to the part 3 of our discussion today, the whole systemization, because I come up with the idea. We call it the Gold Service. He loves the idea. The guy hears it. He goes, that's a great, oh, my God, that's fantastic. Oh, he just thinks that's great. He thinks everybody's going to buy this, that you can't, if you get a discount and you only have to agree to clean your house twice a year, that's not a big commitment. Yeah. And if you know that you really should because it's nasty stuff in your carpet. So we just all thought everybody's going to buy this. Right. So we go out, and now I'm going to tell you guys, you're going to hear some of these ideas, and the first thing people do, the biggest mistake they make, is they go and they change everything in their company all at once, and their sales go down. Because when you're introducing something new, you have to do it in a very controlled and a very tested way. So he had a bunch.
Prove it, figure out how it works.
Yeah, exactly. Figure it out before you go having everybody do it, and everybody doing something different all at the same time, and it's all different and you don't even know what the rules are, you're going to actually have a lower degree of results. So that's where I've seen some of these ideas fail, is that the boss goes, oh, we're going to switch everybody over to this. No. Let's take one guy, So we take their top producer, and he does the service for a week. He tries it. And I get back on the phone with him a week later, and the whole company's listening, the CEO's listening, and I go, so how did it go? He says, it didn't work. I go, it didn't work? And we were all psyched for this, He goes, no, it didn't work. And I go, well, how many people did you offer it to? He said, I offered it to 10 people. So first of all, I'm thinking, not a big enough number, let's test a bigger number. And I said, and nobody bought it? He goes, well, 2 people bought it. But 8 people said no. So, to him, that's a failure, but let's do the math. This guy has 30,000 clients. He gets 10,000 buying a year. If he got just 20% of them buying that gold service, cleaning twice a year, that's 6,000 extra sales a year, and he's only doing 10,000 now.
But his business by 60% overnight.
Yeah, but we ended up actually working on that idea for about 6 months to get it where 4 out of 10. Wow. So I'm just saying a little lesson to, if you're listening, a little bit of success can make a huge difference. You know what I mean? In this case...
So what was the final increase in the business?
It was 100%.
Wow.
100%.
Wow.
And it was a great success.
And how old was that business? The reason I like that
100
example,
years old.
Yeah, 100, that's what I thought. It was a family business, right? So 100-year-old business.
4th generation. Yeah.
4th generation, still offering discounts. Still, what hopefully everyone watching is going to get out of this, what I hope everybody gets out of this is, if you do what everybody else does, you're going to get what everybody else gets. You can't, the most you can get is an incremental improvement in your business if you offer the discounts or you throw out your auto ad and it says, this weekend, buy now, special sale. But if you can get inside the mind of your consumer and figure out what they need, you can motivate them to buy, and you can also get people that want to buy that never bought before, or get your ideal client and figure out how to motivate them to buy. But as you said, you've got to systematize it, not once or twice. You got to keep going at it. The biggest challenge that most people have in their business is they try something and they don't extrapolate. Well, God, if I change one thing, I can change the result 100%. I got to find that one little thing, and then I got to make it a system within the business itself. Let's talk a little bit about salespeople. All right. One of the great things you've done today, I go into business audiences, and because of the web and because of the mentality of how so many people market today, many people think salespeople are, they're an expense, they're too hard to manage, my business doesn't need it. And I've seen so many companies today that you just come in, and we've done it, you and I've done it with multiple companies, come in and show them, look, make this little shift, hire a few salespeople, but the right ones, people that it's their nature, so you're not trying to retrain them 8 million times, and you watch sales go crazy. So talk a little bit about, if you would, about salespeople. Why are they, you'd think people wouldn't have to know this, but many businesses do. Why would they be a must? And more importantly, how do we get the right people that are highest performers? Because that's part of what made you successful. You were one of those guys, but you figured out how to get more of those.
Yeah. Actually, I didn't think I was anything special as a salesperson. I knew I had a lot of discipline. As you know, I have a heavy karate background. But I certainly didn't think I was anything special. And so when I was breaking sales records and everything, I just thought the only reason was because I was difficult to manage. So companies avoided hiring guys like me because we were difficult to manage, guys like you. And so fundamentally, I'm like, well, when I get in a position of authority, I'm going to hire nothing but guys who love to cold call in the morning. And, it became very difficult. So I actually became obsessed with what is the kind of person who is very successful at sales. And now we teach it, as you alluded to, we teach it as a growth strategy. Is that if you can put people with serious horsepower into your company, it doesn't even matter what kind of company, how small you are, and there's a bunch of them you and I are going to give as an example, that, it's just like I had a guy, a graphic designer, and he had a business, and he's a graphic designer. So he didn't ever think about, what he would do with this business, except he would go out and chase business, and when he got a client, he'd go and work on their deal, and then they would, finish, and now we'd have to go get another client. So it was always feast, famine, feast, famine, feast, famine. I said to him, why don't you hire a salesperson? And he goes, well, I don't know. I mean, I can't even survive on the business I'm getting. I go, it's because you don't have a salesperson. And, you hire a guy whose whole job in the world is to get you business, and that's going to change your life. I said, well, what's your best? So let's combine strategies here. what's the best possible client you get? Well, it would be an identity package. That's where I package everything from their, logo to their shipping box to their business cards to their envelope, the full identity of the company, what kind of signage they have, the full identity. And I go, well, how much you charge for that? He says, about $25,000. And I go, and how many of those can you do in a month? He goes, well, I could do 4 a month. And I go, and if I brought you one of those clients right now, identity package for 25 grand, how much of that could you afford to give to me? He said, I could give 20%. I said, so you give me 5,000 and you take 20,000, you'd be happy with that? Yes. And you can do 4 of those a month? Yes. I said, well, that would be $80,000 a month for you and $20,000 a month for me if I'm your salesperson. And he goes, well, I've never done $80,000 in a month. And I go, okay, well, so then you're willing to pay me $20,000 a month if you make $80,000 a month, right? Right. Okay, great. Put that in your ad and let's see what kind of a person you pull. Yes. And so we teach this strategy because here's one of the key ingredients is that top producers have that psychological profile at any age. And then we've designed all these techniques just to find them. Yes. So here's one of the techniques, and you'll appreciate this and you'll get it right away, is that what we do is we reject the candidates in the first 30 seconds of any conversation. And so let's say that I'm trying to find you top producers. And I say to you, okay, Tony, here's what I want you to do. Have one of your people set me up to screen 10 people from 5 to 6 o'clock on Monday night. And you say to me, you're going to interview 10 people in an hour? No, I'm going to decide who I want to interview. Okay, so you set up to 10 people and you and I get on the phone together, and I've done this 100 times. And then I dial out and I bring the first guy in. So the first guy comes in, he's just on the phone. I say, okay, Bill, and you're listening. And I go, okay, Bill, look, we got 55 candidates for this job. Tell me why we want to interview you. So Bill goes, well, can you tell me a little bit more about the job? And I go, you know what, Bill, that's a long conversation. And one of the key lines we put in every ad, it says, don't even call. You'll see my ads running everywhere, right? Because I've been teaching this for years. But it says, don't even call unless you're the best. So, and can prove it or something like that. And so I'll say, Bill, the ad said don't even call unless you're the best. So we're determining right now who we even want to interview. Why do we want to interview you? And 9 out of 10, this is what you'll get. You'll get, well, let's see, I like sales, and I like people, and my mom says I'm real good at it. And I believe if I really believe in your product, I can sell it. And no matter what the guy says, here's what we'll say. We'll go, I'm really not hearing top producer. And you hear this silence. And 9 out of 10 will go like this. They'll go, you're not? And I'll go, no. Complete conviction that you are not a top producer. And the guy goes, well, okay. All right, well, thanks for your time. No problem. Bye. Click, off the phone. And that's how fast it is. Now, what happens when you get a top producer is you can't convince them they're not a top producer. Right. I just saved that guy 2 years of misery, because if I interviewed him in a loving and supportive environment, just like all people interview today, HR friendly, no offense to the HR people listening out there who hate me for this stuff. But, it's what happens is it shows you right away how the person responds when rejected. And let me ask you a question. Is sales a loving and supportive environment? No. Or is it fraught with tremendous rejection on a regular basis? Right. So I had one guy say to me, I go like this, I'm really not hearing top producer. And the guy says, well, maybe you're deaf. And he starts, and then he starts saying, because the last job I went into, he said, I was the new guy, and after 8 months, I started passing people who've been there for 8 years. And the job before that, I broke every record. I'm like, that's what I'm looking for. He's selling. I'm pushing him away. He's pushing harder back. And that's psychological profile. Now, here's the thing. The real key, and again, you can't discriminate by age. So one of our key lines in our ads all say, young or old, if you have the stuff, we'll know. Now, usually that pulls me that 19-year-old Tony Robbins Jr., and he believes in himself. Even though he hasn't proven anything, doesn't have the track record yet, and maybe he was a three-bagger. Wayne Dyer calls it the three-bagger. I don't know if you heard this, right? In the grocery store, he's the guy with, the other guy's only filling up 1 bag of groceries, the bagger, and this guy's got 3 bags, and nobody told him to do that. It's not the standard. Nobody else.
It's his nature. It's his drive.
It's who he is.
Yeah.
And so I'm like a radar for those people. I'm looking for them all the time because, our companies hire 15 to 45 people a week. That's how fast we're growing right now. And it's because these strategies are really, helping people and really making a difference.
Do you have the right mindset and skills to take your business to the next level? Business Mastery is the only event in the world created by Tony Robbins to prepare you to master the mindset and skills you need in business to elevate your game. A one-of-a-kind, immersive program, Business Mastery will allow you to understand the critical factors impacting your business, then refocus and realign with the strategy and psychology you need to compete and innovate in any economy. Remember, business success is 80% psychology and 20% mechanics. If you're ready to learn and master the strategies to help you grow your business and stay competitive, then don't hesitate. Apply for the next Business Mastery program now. Learn more about the Business Mastery event at www.tonyrobbins.com. The Tony Robbins podcast is directed by Tony Robbins, hosted by Annie York, and produced by Carrie Song. Brooks Loro is our digital editor. Tyler Culbertson is our media coordinator. Special thanks to Diane Adcock for her creative review. Our website is tonyrobbins.com/podcast, where you can listen to all of our episodes, read articles, and learn more about upcoming events. Copyright Robbins Research International.